This is Nick Chhabra. Oh, great. Yeah. And you guys can hear me, correct? Tyler, you can hear me? Just doing audio check again.
Yep, you are all good.
Excellent. Excellent. So this is Nick Chhabra. Thanks for the introduction, Tyler. So I'm currently at T-Mobile and yeah, senior technical solution manager. I won't go there, but just one role, right? I started my career many years ago as a developer. So I was passionate about coding at that time. And then I realized actually coding wasn't something that was, uh, seemed interesting for me to continue. So I did some dev work over the years, and then I switched to different roles within IT. And some of the roles I had was, one role that I'm passionate about, or job I was passionate about was project management. I don't do project management now, but it's interesting, the project management tools and techniques that we'll cover today, I use them every day, even in my current role. And interestingly, these skills or techniques, call them tools or project management, what does that really mean? We all use it in some way or the other. We just don't know it. So it's lack of awareness more than that we don't have the skills. So I'll give you one crude example to start this conversation to tie this, how it relates to everyday life. Recently on the July 4th weekend, right? Your family, your dad or mom or friend or relative set up a barbecue, right? That was their project to have a barbecue. They had to figure out who to invite to the barbecue, how many people to invite, what time to invite these people, what time to start, what time to end the barbecue, what food to serve, how, do the fireworks or not, how to keep everyone safe, how to keep everyone entertained, and so on. That was their project, believe it or not. They started this effort. They had to communicate to everyone. They had to finish certain tasks to prepare for the barbecue. They had tasks during the barbecue and so on. So that's an example where every day we use project management skills, but we don't realize them because we don't think that way. Because project management in big context is typically used in a more corporate or professional world, right? But we all use it. So give yourself a pat on the back because you are already a project manager. So in some way or fashion. But today we'll tie it back to, more specific things that you can then use to finish your CodeDay project that you're currently working on. Use these skills on other projects or day to day, and we'll cover in a bit what these are. And as I go along, I tend to talk fast, but do put questions in the Q&A box there, and then Tyler can interrupt. I can't hear you all, but Tyler I can, and then he can ask those questions as we go along. I'm okay with that. Or you can ask towards the end of the presentation. We'll have plenty of time for you to go ask. And don't be shy, please. Do ask. This is for everyone's benefit. We are in a safe place. So again, use this opportunity to ask away. Agenda for today, we'll talk about what is a project, what is project management, the discipline, who are project professionals, when we talk about project managers or program managers, what does that mean? I mean, and then what are their responsibilities and what are tools and techniques they use, and then soft skills. And these are some of the skills you're well familiar with already, is just putting them in context of project management. And then we'll summarize at the end and open it up for Q&A. To start then, let's talk about what is a project. Project by definition is a temporary endeavor or initiative to create a unique project service or result. So one keyword here is it's a temporary undertaking. So the work, for example, you're doing for this CodeDay Labs is a temporary initiative. And by definition, it is a project. And some of the other attributes that make something a project versus not is each project has a beginning and an end. So for your, again, trying to code day project that you're currently working on, it started someday, a few days back, few weeks back, perhaps, or maybe some of you might be starting soon. And then you have a target end date on when this lab initiative ends, or by certain date you're supposed to submit your work. So it has a beginning and an end. That's one of the key attributes. Each project is unique. The difference here is that a project is something like you do on a regular basis, a repetitive task, such as, let's say, accounting, a customer service work, or technical support. It's a repetitive task, or what they call operations tasks. Those are not typically considered a project. So projects are always something unique with a given, again, time frame, a beginning and end, and a unique delivery, meaning you're delivering something unique. Third attribute here is projects have a team. So I'm not totally sure, but I'm guessing projects you're currently working on, you have at least somebody you're collaborating with to deliver that project. So typically projects will have some teams that you work with to work on those initiatives or projects. Projects have a budget. This may not be directly relevant to work you're doing for Code Day, but again, typically a project does have a budget. And budget in simple terms is an estimate of income and expense over a specified future period of time. So I think this budget attribute is more relevant to what Tyler and team and Code Day team is doing, because they have to have certain budget to be able to host this event, right? They need resources. They need to figure out where to host the event if it is on site. They have to pay rental, for example, maybe somewhere to get that space. They probably have to hire people, even though it's a volunteer organization. They could be that they need some help and they have to pay for something, or to even set up the space and so on. Meaning they have a budget that they need to work with to be able to host this event. So budget conversation doesn't apply to what work you're doing, because again, it's a bit different. But project by definition have projects in general have budgets. Projects have deliverables. And again, if you think about project, there are a list of tasks and activities that you have to complete to deliver the product that you're building, right? So it has certain deliverables, set of expectations from the person or team or group that you work building this project for, that there's certain expectation that you're going to deliver something at the end of the project. Projects have a schedule. So when we talk about, oops, sorry, I moved too fast there. Let's go back here. Sorry. So projects have a schedule. So schedule like a timetable of when you're going to go do what is a schedule. So this is something, with multiple tasks and activities, you need to have a schedule of when you're going to complete those tasks. And that's critical, because if you think about it, if you don't have a plan on when you're going to do what, chances of you not completing or not finishing on time is becomes a reality, right? So having a schedule, having timelines, or deliverables defined, having a team, you know, having some target on when you're going to finish these tasks and when you're going to finish, are key attributes of a project. I'm going to pause for a minute and see if there are any questions. Okay.
Looks like no questions so far, but folks, if you do have a question, feel free to post them in the Q&A at any time.
Yeah, thank you, Tyler. Going on to the next slide, what is project management? So project management is a discipline to deliver projects, if you will, and project management is relevant in pretty much any industry you go to, including CodeDay labs, right? They manage these activities or tasks or these events as projects. You don't see them as projects, but these are considered projects. Some of the examples I've given here is construction of a building. It's in, you know, construction business or, real estate or not. There's if something has to be built, it's tackled as a project. a natural disaster. This is an extreme example, but I wanted to call it out because a relief effort for a natural disaster, a fire recently in New Mexico, it's considered a project. People have to collaborate and meet this, event, I mean, and finish certain tasks for that, disaster. So again, we don't think of it this way, but typically there's a team behind the scene that do the work to get that done, whatever it might be. And again, last one, of course, I mentioned, and this just three, I mean, I can give you 20 examples where project management, is occurring on daily basis. And to do all of this activity, you know, there's certain knowledge that you gain by reading certifications, education, uh, or experience, and then skills and tools that you learn along the way to be in this project management discipline. And that can be, a career that you want to pursue, perhaps, if development is not your piece of cake, or even as a developer, chances are when you pursue your professional career, you will be working with somebody from project management discipline. And term that I didn't put on the slide is there's a something called PMO, or Project Management Office, or organization, depending on who you ask. But PMOs, some companies have a PMO, some don't, but they do have PMs, or project managers. But PMOs are typically, centralized function where they can provide project managers for projects at companies, or each team can have their own project managers. So, it's a pretty prevalent, relevant discipline to pursue as a career in any company, not just IT. So that's a key. It's not just IT thing, it's pretty much everywhere. Moving on to who are the project professionals. So again, project professionals are people who use these tools and techniques to ensure the project team meets its goals. And for reference, actually, there are different roles you can pursue as a project in this project management discipline. Most prevalent, most common project manager role, where people who lead projects. There's also called program management and portfolio management disciplines. Program managers are typically managing projects. They are overseeing multiple projects, and they are project managers who work under program managers to deliver multiple projects. So they manage program or multiple projects. Portfolio, on the other hand, is portfolio of programs. So think of it that way. So again, you can go into portfolio management discipline, but typically what happens is people look for somebody to be a portfolio manager to have experience as a project manager or program manager. So it kind of, then you can, if you don't know how to manage a project, then you won't be successful in managing a program or a portfolio. So, but portfolio management is a discipline by itself, and program management and project manager are kind of used loosely, but the definition is, project is one project typically, or group of smaller projects, but program management is managing multiple big or small projects. I'll pause for a minute. Q&A, excellent. I see one. Let's pull it up. Yeah, project manager and product manager roles. So good question. So product management is very different. We're totally different discipline. Product management is about managing a product. So let's say a product being, I'm going to use loosely, actually, it's something you're familiar with, Amazon.com, a website that you go to or app that you use. That website is a product. That, think of it as a product, meaning to create something like that, you have to have a vision of what does a product look like? What features should the product have? What is industry doing in the real retail web sphere, right? What are other companies doing? What are the best practices to create that website? And do you want to have different payment options within that, right? To accept payments. Do you want to open the website for vendors and suppliers to be able to sell directly? So those are certain features that you might have used, even as simple as feature as a cart where you find a product and add something to a cart is a feature of that product. So what product managers do typically, they define a roadmap, they define what the product would look like. And that's a product manager's role. Project manager would be the implementer of that product, meaning now you have the requirements, product manager has defined what the product would look like. The project managers will go make it happen and manage it as a project to go deliver that product. And again, I'm keeping it very high level and relating to what you know you might have seen at like Amazon being an example, but products are not physical products. Sometimes a product could be an app, could be a service, could be anything, right? So hopefully, Nikolai, I answered the question. If you do have additional questions, just post them and I'll try to answer them. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, so project managers' responsibilities. Project managers aren't shadowy figures. So what does that mean? What I'm trying to convey here is these are people who are not, let's take an example. If I'm a developer and I'm given certain tasks to go do, I can actually hide at my desk for hours working on that coding, right? I don't have to talk to anyone. I don't have to tell anyone what I'm doing. I know exactly what I have to build, and I can hide and do that for hours and days and so on, right? Project management is not that figure where they can hide somewhere and go do their work. They are the leaders. They have to drive things. They have to make key decisions. They have to pull teams together. They have to help clear the roadblocks for the team. They have to track timelines. They have to communicate with the other project stakeholders and so on. So it's a very visible, very active role, and they are not someone who you would not ever hear from or work with, because as part of their role, they are very, very active and very visible on any given project. So, for example, what they do, right? Team organization, they have to ensure that they can get the right team, right people on the project who can do the work, right resources, right? Again, for your project that you're working on, your team assignments are probably, I'm assuming actually here, were defined by a CodeDay project team, and that you didn't just go out on your own and saying, "Oh, I need to build something, and I'm going to build my own team." There are certain requirements, right? CodeDay requires with certain experience, certain qualifications, a certain age. So they define those parameters, and then they give you certain teams to work with. And I'm assuming, Tyler, that's the case. But if not, that's okay. I'm just kind of
It's more or less right. Yeah, it's defined by a mentor, but same idea.
by a mentor, right? So somebody is defining the team who you're going to work with to deliver something. But typically in an organization or corporation, project managers might be asked to go build a team to go deliver the project. So they need to identify how many teams or people they need on the project and so on. Time management, right? This is setting realistic deadlines for the team, communicating those deadlines to the team, to the stakeholders. Uh, you know, and time management is very, very critical, because if you don't manage time, you can't deliver. Then monitoring project progress, so they are so very active in the entire project from the beginning to the end, where they help, as I mentioned earlier, they do a lot of different activities, and project progress could be to help clear the roadblocks that they might be running into. So for example, I'll give you one crude example. Let's say team is and with thanks to COVID, teams are remote, right? People are working from home, and people can be anywhere, literally, right? I mean, even in Mexico, there could be a team in Brazil, who knows, right? People could be collaborating remotely, virtually. And it happened to me actually very recently, where there was an internet issue, right? As a project manager, I can't help clear the roadblock of person on the team having internet connectivity issues because the person is in a place where there's a lower bandwidth. But I can help mitigate that by managing the time, giving the person a little bit more time to work on it, or giving them alternate options to join the team meetings to be able to help the person and the team finish what they're tasked to finish. Again, I'm using very generic examples so you can relate to it. And then, they can help those clear those roadblocks and take corrective action. And again, the ask is of project managers is to be able to deliver the project on time and budget. And then next one, we talk about budgets and cost estimates, right? You don't have to deal with it, but typically, projects have certain dollar amount or budgets that they're given to go deliver, right? It's not an open-ended commitment. So if you're building a new condominium, and let's say you have a $20 million budget, well, you can't go to 40 million tomorrow. And if you don't have a budget of 20 or you don't know what the budget is, you might most likely you'll end up spending much more money than you had budget for. So if you build something with 40 million and you only had 20, well, first you won't because you don't have the additional 20 to build it. So your project actually fails because you didn't think about it. You didn't consider the budget and cost estimates while looking at the requirements and building that or delivering whatever it was you were asked to go deliver. So budgets play a very critical role. And in some organizations, project managers do not manage budget, but in some organizations, that's the expectation of project managers. So in my personal experience, some of the projects I worked with, I was given the budget, but I didn't have to manage it. I had to manage it in the sense that I couldn't hire 20 more people to deliver the project because we were running late because I didn't have the budget to do it. But I didn't manage day to day or reporting of the budget on how much money I was spending. I wasn't tracking it that somebody else was, but I was still aware of the budget on how much money did I have to go deliver. Then let's look into.
We had a quick question
Oh
just
yeah,
around careers. How do you get hired into being a project manager? And sort of are companies willing to train folks? Is it something that you can apply for?
yes. So definitely, all of these disciplines you can get hired, right? And as a fresh uh, college graduate, you can get into any of these opportunities because companies do train. So don't worry about because it's catch 22, right? Chicken or egg thing. If you don't get a job in the discipline you want, how are you going to get the experience? If you don't have the experience, and someone says, "Oh, you don't have experience," how are you going to get the experience if nobody gives you the opportunity, right? But as a fresh college graduate, you can get into any of these disciplines: product management, project management, and so on. And the question is, how much experience would you need if you are trying to obtain a profession in this area? Yeah, again, I said, yeah, experience you gain at work. Again, the job market is good. Technology, especially, there are plenty of jobs, and the so opportunities are there. It's just you need to figure out what is it that you want to do. And one thing, the other question, different process than trying to obtain a job as a software developer? No, process doesn't change. It's more for you to define your resume on what are you be explicit on what you're looking for. So let's say, Johnny, if you're a developer, your resume speaks to your dev experience, but you want a project manager role, be explicit saying, yes, I am looking for this. I'm passionate about project management or product management, and be explicit in your summary or section above saying that's a job you're looking for. The other thing I would say is, so let's say you get a job because you have been doing development and you get a job as a software developer, get your foot into the door. All of these companies, big companies especially, have plenty of opportunities. So sometimes it's a question of getting in the discipline that you already have experience in through college education or classes you may have taken or labs like these or certifications, right? If you have a software development experience, go get the job of a software developer, get some professional experience in that field, and then decide, is that something you want to continue or do you want to get into project management or product management? Companies are more than willing to give you that opportunity once you're in. Coming in from outside with no experience and say, oh, I've been a developer, but I want a project management role, is much harder. But it's possible, but a little bit harder. So hopefully that I answered that question. So Let's see, managing stakeholders. So what are this? Who are the stakeholders, right? So in simplistic term, and this term might be new to some of you, any in simplistic terms, any person who's positively or negatively impacted by a project is considered a stakeholder, right? A stakeholder could be your immediate project team. In your case, a stakeholder is CodeDay Lab team, Tyler and team, and your mentors. Those are your stakeholders. Your, you know, in a typical professional, you know, corporate world on a project, your business partners who are giving you the requirements to build something are your stakeholders. So stakeholders can mean a lot of different the different group of people from different groups, disciplines coming together to deliver a project. And stakeholders are critical to the success of a project because again, they are collectively are involved in one way or the other to the success of the project. They play different roles. So they could be a product manager on a project. They could be a business analyst on the project. There could be certain, number of developers. They could be testers. They could be, let's say even I would put, let's say in Amazon.com, a retail organization VP could be a stakeholder because that's his agenda to get deliver Amazon.com website. So again, he is or she is a stakeholder as well. So stakeholders can vary depending on the product or project you're working on. So let's talk about a little bit on communication here, even though I'm going to cover it a little bit later in different contexts, but I have mentioned communication here in stakeholder communication. Let's dig into this a little bit deeper, even though I'm going to cover it under soft skills as well. Communication is one of the things you do every day, and some of us are inherently either introverts or extroverts. What that means is we love communicating with people, or sometimes we don't, we'd rather not. We are quiet and quieter because, again, that's our upbringing or our preference, right? There's no right or wrong. But if you are in a project manager role, it doesn't matter if you're an introvert or not. I was an introvert for a long time. Didn't actually mean that I wasn't a good project manager. It's just I didn't like talking to people. But in context of project management, communication is a skill that you need to build no matter how you look at it. And what does communication mean, right? What are the communication skills? It's not just the verbal communication. It can be a verbal, it can be written in the sense your emails that you send, your project status reports, your presentation skills, right? If you're presenting to a different audience, different stakeholders, and you're asked to present something, your vision, what you're building, it's not going to be an email. Most likely it's going to be of some kind of presentation. It doesn't matter what presentation method or tools you use. It could be a PowerPoint, could be a Word document. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying in case you have to present, meaning you're communicating with someone, your stakeholders, and that's where your communication skill comes, where your written skills are tested, and that you have to be able to present your thoughts and be able to explain that to someone, right? And then another skill we don't think about much is active listening. This is very critical because sometimes we go in as humans, are depending on the persona. I am right? Meaning what I'm doing on my project, I know what I'm doing. So, for example, the project you're currently working on, you were given certain project or you picked a project, you know what it is better than anybody else. Now, if somebody comes along like Nick or Tyler or your mentor and saying, hey, by the way, nah, this is not going well, let's pick another project. And you're going to, first thing that comes out of, typically response is, no, this is the project. This is perfect. This is what I want to do. And where I'm going with this is active listening is a communication skill where you listen to your stakeholders, to your team, and it could be anything, right? So let's say your team is burnt out, you're making them work 20 hours a day, and team is complaining, saying, hey, by the way, we're working too much, and you're too harsh on them, saying, nope, we have deadline this weekend to finish, and you're not giving or clearing that roadblock for them, meaning your team is going to suffer, your project is going to suffer. So listen. So soft skill that you need to work on as to be a successful project manager, but that's a skill you can take and use anywhere. Pause for a minute, see if there are any questions before we jump to the next. And just doing a quick time check. Yep, we're good on time. Project management tools and techniques. And there's a whole list of these. Again, I picked some sample techniques. There are more available online, and I've given reference of where I got this information from on the bottom. But there's a site called PMI, Project Management Institute.org. They are the professional body for project management discipline. So a lot of information is there. It's free. And again, you don't need to sign for membership. There's a lot of information that you can get from there. And then there's a whole another site. Maybe I'll mention it here. It's called projectmanagement.com, I believe. I didn't put it there, but I didn't refer to that one for information for this content. But there's a projectmanagement.com, and there's plenty of other sites where you can go look. So going to tools and techniques, these are some of the practical tools to deal with project challenges. Again, I call them challenges because project in some way or the other, you will run into some challenge pretty much throughout the life cycle of a project. And challenges doesn't necessarily mean bad things, right? Again, the word challenge means, oh, something is totally wrong and it's not going well. Yeah, challenges are challenging your thought process, like challenges that make you think out of the box. Challenges are, hey, I have other commitments, but I need to work on this, right? So challenge could come in different ways, or in your project that may impact your ability to deliver. So, for example, uh, let's get to the first one. For example, getting a commitment. So let's say you have a team of 5, right? And 2 of those people are not delivering, meaning they're not committed to the project as much as you are, just because they have other commitments, they don't have time, or they're just not interested in this. They don't believe in this product, even though they signed up for it. Maybe they're not interested, right? So uneven participation in the project, or not having everyone having the same commitment, can impact the project. So again, it leads to a lot of issues where, blame, or it's not my fault, it's yours, or it's the team members. But then as a project manager, it's your job to get the commitment, to make sure you have the right team to be able to go deliver, right? Define the right roles and responsibilities. Give the team, use their skills, right? If somebody is not a strong Python developer, and Python is one of the tools you're using or languages, and then you have other work for them, leverage those skills, right? Give them a little bit less intensive or complex problem to solve, but leverage their skill if they are your part of your team. So getting a commitment from the team is critical. Brainstorming, right? This is an ideation exercise where the project team brainstorm ideas. In your CodeDay project, you might be already beyond this, but I want to call it out because this is one of the it's amazing actually how brainstorming can help projects initially in coming up with the ideas and thinking out of the box. And this is a thinking out of the box methodology that I've used. And there are different ways of doing it on how you collect that information, which I'm not going to go into. But what I'm saying is use the brainstorming, learn about it, read about it, and see if you can use it, if not for this project, for future projects with CodeDay or other projects you might be doing with other organizations. It's a very interesting and creative way of coming up with the ideas. Success criteria. So one of the things for a project to be successful, you need to know where you're going, where you're heading. What does the end look like? What is the end goal that you're trying to achieve? You need to define that success criteria. And I laugh sometimes because success criteria can apply to your life as well. What is it that you want to do in your life, right? If you don't have the vision of what you want to do, you're not going to get there because you don't have clarity in your mind on what is it that you really, really want to do in the long haul. Let me pause and answer the question. If only you have time to implement one project management technique, which one do you think has the biggest impact? Interesting question. So there is no one technique that I'll say you can use. You have to use all of these techniques in some way or fashion. There is no one, I won't even name one because there is no such thing. I mean, it's a combination of all of these. So one, okay, maybe I'll use it differently actually. I'm gonna cover it a bit later, but I would say use your leadership skills as a project manager to go deliver. So that's a soft skill in some ways, but not necessarily a tool here that I mentioned. So if you were to use one thing, read about leadership skills. What does that mean? And it encompasses all of these in some way or fashion. And some of the soft skills we'll cover in a minute. Hopefully that answers your question. But sorry, there's no direct one tool or technique I can call. That would be unfair in so many ways. Manage scope expectations. So this is again, when you start a project, you're given what we call requirements from product managers, your stakeholders. And typically in projects, it's not unusual where requirements that were you were given initially and then requirements that come afterwards are different, or the scope creep happens where your stakeholders change what they really want you to go deliver. So as a project manager, it's your responsibility to manage that scope and manage those expectations, because otherwise what will happen is you'll never deliver because expectations keep changing from your stakeholders of what do they really want. So scope expectations, managing those is critical. Continuous improvement. Always think about ways to improve. Now you might ask, if I already have a project, I know what I'm delivering, I know the resources, I know the timeline, what am I improving? It's a good question. But like everything else, as you work on something, there are always things you can look at and find a better way of doing it, more efficient way of doing it. And I used an example earlier for somebody, let's say a team member who's unable to work because of his internet connection is not good. Empower him to work, saying, hey, why don't we split the team into two teams? One works during the daytime Pacific time, and the other team is going to work off hours because they are in a different time zone, right? It's a process improvement that you came up with based on the challenges of internet connectivity during the daytime for those people. So again, very crude example, but one example. But improvement can mean and come up in different ways in different fashions, right? So continuous improvement is critical, meaning continue to think and find ways to make your project better. Fixing the right problem. This is interesting, and I'll cover it a little bit because it can mean a lot of different things. In project management, there are three things, what we call a triangle. It means scope, cost, or time. These are the three attributes of a triangle. And you have to figure out what is it that fix to be able to deliver. So for example, if somebody changes the scope, the triangle is going to look different now because your scope has changed, meaning to fix that problem, you may need additional time to go deliver those requirements if you agree to that. And to even to deliver that, you may need additional money to hire additional resources to do it. If it's just a time where your team member fell sick and you don't have enough time to deliver, then it's a different problem. Then you go extend your timeline. It's not the scope, it's not the cost, but cost is there because you're extending your timeline, right? So identifying the right problem to fix is critical. You can't just keep pumping more people to the problem. And that's very typical where your project is not going well, and what you say is like, as a project manager, I'm going to bring in two additional folks who are better, and I'm going to add those two additional people to the team for them to go fix a problem. It just doesn't work that way. So again, that's what this fixing the right problem is. Starts with the identifying the right problem and then figuring out what's the right solution. Lessons learned. Lessons learned, or retrospective as it's called, is critical, and it can happen in two phases. Lessons learned at the end of the project, where your project is ending or ended, and then you do a retrospective and you look back and work with your team and stakeholders to identify what can be done differently, what can we do better, what can we change, or what worked. Maybe everything worked, What were those things? What did we do to make it work, to deliver, and document all those? And then it just doesn't stop there. Use that for your next project. Look at those lessons learned and avoid those mistakes. If everything worked, which it never does, but there are always some things you can do better. So at the beginning of the project, your next project, do use those lessons that you have learned from your this current project or prior projects, and make sure you're aware of those challenges and issues that you had, and figure out a way to mitigate those at the beginning of the project. It doesn't mean at the end of the project you won't have new challenges or lessons learned, but at least you were aware and you took corrective action at the beginning of the project to minimize those challenges. And that's what lessons learned is, you know, comes in, and very critical. Don't skip it, because it's something. Because mindset is project is done, good or bad. I'm done with it. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to look at it. But again, this is a critical activity that needs to happen for success of future projects. All right, I'm going to pause and I'm going to go to soft skills. See if there are any questions. So one thing on soft skills, like this is just a small list. These are, I call life skills, not just project management skills, because if you think about your day, when you wake up till you go to bed, you need to manage your time. Whatever it might be, you might be doing. You might be in college and school, you're working part-time, you're working full-time. You have to manage your time. You need to figure out what does that look like. We are not all of us are good with time management. And my son, as an example, right? He's a teenager. He's still trying to figure out. I'm trying to help him, but it's not the concept that people grow up with or understand. And it comes with experience, right? You fail, you learn, you miss your class because you overslept. You not didn't manage your time because you didn't sleep on time last previous night because you're playing video games too long or something, right? I'm giving an example, but that's where over time you need to figure out what time management means. How do you do that? Learn that skill. We talked about communication in quite a bit detail, so I'm going to skip this. Problem solving. How do you solve a problem, right? It's comes in different ways. You can use different techniques for problem solving. There's a whole problem solving ways. For example, you learn how to do logical reasoning. Why did the problem occur? What did I do wrong? What could I have done better? Observe, right? Observation of what happened. Brainstorming is a skill you can use in solving the problem. Think about it. Why did the problem occur? What were the things? What could have been different, right? On how in that situation. Decision making, right? Did you make the right decisions at the right time? All of those are problem solving skills that you build and think. Teamwork, we talked about. You all succeed as a team, you fail as a team. Never ever no matter how smart you are. And I've worked with a lot of smart people over the years. It doesn't work when a person is overconfident and say, I can do it all. I don't need my team. Even if they're on my team, I know what I'm doing and I'm going to go do the work and make projects successful. And they go solo or take the credit for the team, or they do the work for the team because they think the team members are not smart enough. It doesn't work. You always work with the team, enable your team, empower your team to be successful. Teamwork is critical for your life, for a project. It's again, I said life skills because always work as a team. You can bring certain skills to the work you're doing or the project, but only way you succeed is by working with others. Creativity. Be creative. Think out of the box. Use the brainstorming skills to be creative. Don't go and follow something that somebody else has done. Use imagination. Think out of the box is what I'm saying. And not everyone can think out of the box. I don't a lot of times. Use this in skill called mind mapping. Read about it. It's called mind mapping. It's a something brainstorming activity. Very powerful. Use that. uh, Experimentation. right? If you have some idea, the only way you know if it works or not is by experimenting or implementing or doing a proof of concept, right? You can't do that in all scenarios, but creativity comes in different ways and you can implement in different ways to ensure it's a right idea. And then questioning people, questioning yourself, and questioning the idea itself. If it's a right idea, just because it's different doesn't mean it's creative or necessarily a good idea. We talked about leadership skills. Leadership skills come again. I'm not going to go too much because we already covered it, but leadership, because there was a question earlier. I would pick this because this requires all of the other skills for you to be a good leader. And, in all honesty, not everyone is cut out to be a leader. I said I was an introvert, right? I didn't see myself as a leader. And sometimes I still don't because it's by my personal preference. I'd rather have somebody else take the leadership role and I contribute in other ways. So leadership shows up in different places, in different projects. And a lot of times it shows up when you're passionate about something. In certain projects, you are more passionate and you say, hey, I'm going to take the leadership role and I'm going to help the team. Leadership doesn't mean you're the single point of contact. Leadership shows up in different ways. If you're part of the team, you come up with an idea and share with the team. That's your leadership skill. Like, hey, you're stepping up, sharing, be creative, doing the teamwork, solving a problem. That's your leadership skill. So all of these collectively are in some way or fashion your leadership skills. Interpersonal skills, right? Again, how do you work with others, right? Show empathy, meaning put yourself in other person's shoes when you work with the team, right? Because don't go with an attitude that I am right. Yes, you may be right, but again, for you to be successful is hear somebody else's idea, hear somebody's concerns, right? Other people's concern. Be empathy, show empathy or be empathetic. Uh, Sense of humor, right? Not everyone has a sense of humor, and sense of humor can be rude sometimes, so you have to be careful when you use it, but it's a very powerful tool or skill to have where you inject humor in the conversations, where you make team comfortable. They know that, it kind of helps build a team as well, a team morale if you have humor, but use it cautiously and don't be, rude to people. And people are sensitive sometimes. So you have to know the person and know the team a little bit to use humor. Networking, tolerance, and diplomacy. All of these are again other interpersonal skills that you can look into and build, that helps you succeed on a project and otherwise. Work ethics. If you commit to something, make a commitment and deliver, right? Work ethics doesn't mean you're working 12-hour days. That's not what I'm talking about. Accountability, right? If you're given something, please hold yourself accountable and go do it. If you're running into challenges, you talk about it, right? Discuss it with the team. But ethics is can mean a lot of things. But again, it's putting, valuing your work, putting in the effort to yield results. I mean, this is pretty critical, skill to have along with others. And you will get a lot of questions on this work ethics in some way or fashion in the interviews when you go look for a job if you're already not working. You have to be able to show that you're a dependable person, that you are professional, that you are disciplined, that you're responsible, right? Why should they hire you? Because you're a team player. All of those things need to be in your messaging when you go look for a job, that how your ethics kind of show up to that you're a value add to the team that you're planning to join. Attention to detail. This is kind of very subjective. What does detail mean, right? It can mean a lot of different things. So let's say if you're coding and you are, you don't have a catch-all error handling in your code for some reason. Again, you don't think you had enough time to go build all the error handling and you left it just because you thought it wasn't necessary. But it was one of the key requirements, right? You need to pay attention to that detail. What was the requirement actually? Did I understand what was asked? Did I build what was asked? Paying attention to those details. Did I listen to the project manager when he said, oh, by the way, you need to finish this by end of this week? And then what does the end of weekend mean, right? Was it end of day Friday? Was it end of day Sunday, right? Detail can mean a lot of different things depending on the question, depending on the work you're doing, but paying attention to the detail is critical. Again, these are some of the skills, not all of the soft skills or project skills that you need, but I wanted to call out some here that would be, helpful, I think. Before I go to the next slide, actually, let me pause for questions. We are good on time, and then you'll have plenty of time for questions as well. One more question. Excellent. How well are PM jobs paid compared to those in software engineering? What is the industry demand for PM specialists? It, oh boy, that's a loaded question. My recommendation typically is you need to set a priority. Is it the money you're looking for? Is it the company you're looking for that you want to work for? Or is it some passion that you're following? You need to decide. My philosophy in life is money will follow. In terms of compensation, I would personally recommend don't look at the compensation first. Look at what you want to do, or look at the company you want to passionate to join. Like let's say you want to join Amazon, right? And you're a software developer. Go join Amazon because that's your priority. Or if your goal is I need to make $50,000 a year, I don't care where I work, what company, and it's a PM job or not. I want to work 50 hour, or I may want to make $50,000 a year. That's my priority. That's fine, but set that goal. But don't worry about the compensation just yet, because compensation can vary from company to company, and definitely PMs don't make as much money as software engineering folks do. As simple as that. There is no qualms about it, but that's something you need to decide what you really want to do. What's a career development path for project managers? So as I said, the project managers, you become senior project managers, you become principal project managers, you become, program managers, you can manage portfolios, you can be even, a CIO of a company. I mean, there's no limit. But again, every company has a different path for individual, what they call individual contributor, meaning if you're a single person, not have any directs reporting to you, that's a different path than if you are a manager, not a project manager, but a manager, meaning you have people working under you. So you can be a people manager and a project manager, and there's a different career path for it. What are interviews for PMs like? That's a pretty loaded question. So what I would recommend with the time we have, let's reach out to me via LinkedIn and I can help answer that. Interviews can cover everything that we have covered in this slide. Okay. So if you need more information, yeah, definitely I can help on more. All right. So going to wrap up, actually, you know, I would say you're in a safe place with this project, and going forward, actually take the opportunity to learn when you're presented with the opportunity and lead your team right now with the skills we talked about. Oops, let me hide this. Sorry, Q&A. Apply these skills in the project you're currently working on. Be aware, be conscious. So in summary, spend time planning what you're going to do and when. And I'm talking about each one of you. And if you are working in a team, identify a person on your team who would become your de facto sort of project manager. It doesn't mean they're not doing the work that they're assigned, but use their skill, identify one person who can use all the skills we talked about and lead this project to completion and a success, right? Who can define what success means. And it can be a collaborative effort. I'm just saying, if you have a point of contact, they can take a lead on this to go do all of these. They can collaborate and communicate, right, with each other. They can communicate with the mentor. So mentor doesn't feel randomized where they're getting questions from 5 different people, same question. You can collaborate within yourself and saying, hey, by the way, our project manager is Joe Doe or John Doe. I'm going to go have him be the point and ask and get clarifications for the team from the mentor or the CodeDay Labs team. So having a point of contact who could lead the project helps in different ways. Summarize what you have done for the judges. This may not apply. I didn't realize this lab work is a bit different than your CodeDay project activity that where the projects are judged. So this may not apply as much. But again, judging could be meaning once your project is done, somebody is evaluating, right? You need to summarize for them, put everything in context of what did you do? right? Don't just give them an app. So let's say created Amazon.com and you give it to me and say, we're done. But I don't have a context. What were you trying to deliver, right? Then I'm just going to judge it differently or look at it differently because you didn't provide context of what you do. Did you build? What were the requirements? What did you do? What could you not do with the time constraint or budget constraint? Put all those in a document. It can be done differently. Put that information somewhere, right? And then we talk about lessons learned. Think what you can do better next time. And I would last thing I would say, don't forget to enjoy CodeDay experience and just have fun with what you do. It's not the end of the world. I mean, learn, enjoy, have fun, but take action, please. It is like, this, I love this code. The way to get started is to quit talking, meaning let's go start somewhere. It's again, you learn by doing, not just talking. So thank you. I'm here. I can stay longer if there are questions, but thanks, Tyler, for the opportunity. And thanks, everyone, for showing up. I really appreciate all of your time. I know you guys have busy schedules, so I sincerely appreciate your time being there, listening to me. I don't know everything, but I love this and I love mentoring people. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Nick. We really appreciate having you.
All right. Thank you. Any questions? A quiet audience. Okay. All right. Stop sharing. Thank you all.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.